Hi, hello, and welcome to another episode of The Dunker Spot. We are part of 342 Productions. I am your host, Nekias Duncan, and joining me as always is my co-host, Steve Jones Jr. Steve, how are you doing, sir?
Aha, feeling good, feeling great, happy to be here, excited to be here. Thank you, Dunkers, for once again embracing your bounce. Dunker Nation, let's ride. Nekias, Statman himself, it's time to hoop it up.
Statman himself is crazy.
Statman, yeah, that's him.
All right. Shout out Aces head coach Becky Hammond, who was expecting a stat question from me over the weekend after the Aces 50-plus point preseason win over the Puerto Rican national team.
You went rotation, didn't you?
Not even. I went like free throw placement.
That's extremely on brand. Did you ask Kelsey Plum that question? Anyways, what we got?
All right, fair enough. We got a lot to get to today. Very quickly on the news front, the Hawks winning the lottery. We got award announcements. Going to talk about these playoff series. And then Steve and I are bouncing back and forth. The WNBA season starts, I guess, as you listen to this video. It's going to be released on Tuesday. WNBA season starts today. And so we've got 12 teams. We've got 12 questions. We're going to have fun, a little bit of back and forth. I'll operate as a preview for you. We've been sprinkling in some W preseason takes over the past week or so. We'll let that serve as our preview, and then we'll go into full-fledged W coverage moving forward. So if you are trying to get into the league now, if you are a casual fan who's wanting to get deeper into it, we got you covered. We're going to have some fun this season. But very first, quick congratulations to the Atlanta Hawks winning the NBA draft lottery. The rest of the order is as follows. The Wizards drafting second. Houston via Brooklyn Nets. Wonder how they're feeling about that one right now. Houston third. San Antonio fourth. Detroit fifth. I feel really bad for the Detroit Pistons. Charlotte 6, Portland 7, San Antonio 8. They get the pick from the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors do not keep their pick. Wondering how their fans are feeling today. Memphis 9, Utah 10, Chicago 11, OKC 12 via Houston, Sacramento 13, and Portland 14. So just a very quick question from you. We're not going to do full-blown draft talk today. Do you think it's more likely that the Hawks keep that pick or use it as an asset to bring more talent in?
I would say more likely that they keep it. I mean, they had a 3% chance to get it. It does not feel like there's a clear consensus, number one. So I understand packaging that plus someone, but if there's no clear consensus, how much more of a return are you going to get? I guess is my first thought. So the trade is probably going to be the trade. So why not take the pick and see what you can get if you need to make a move that way?
Got you. I don't know if the Hawks actually go into like full-blown rebuild mode right now. Like I doubt they press the button on both Trey and DeJounte. I think it'd be either one of those two. Both guys have been linked in trade talks over the past year or so. So we'll see what happens there as we get closer to the draft. We get more intel, maybe have a draft person on to talk some stuff. We'll get deeper into it. But just a quick hat tip to the Hawks. As Steve mentioned, 3% chance to get it. It's found money for the Atlanta Hawks. On the award front, we are getting the Sportsmanship Award winner announced on Thursday. And then next week, we wrap things up. All rookie teams on Monday, all defensive teams on Tuesday, all NBA teams on Wednesday. I am excited / nervous / pre-annoyed by some of the names that will be listed. More so when we get to like the full-blown ballots and we see who gets, who got votes but didn't make the team, that kind of thing. I end up doing like a thread every year. It's a whole thing.
Nekias, you're burying the lead. We are T-minus 10 days away from the Nekias Duncan thread rant at certain folks after he sees the ballots. I'm very intrigued to see what it looks like this year. So we'll have some fun. No worries. We'll get a full breakdown on the Dunker Spot. Just stick with us.
There we go. Hopefully I just have like a singular tweet versus like a 16 tweet thread, because that would signify a lot of things that I disagree with. So we will see. That's it on the NBA news portion. Let's dig into some playoff talk because we got a lot to get into. Since the last time we chopped it up, we got 2 games in the Pacers-Knicks series, and we got 2 Pacer wins. A 111-106 victory over the Knicks for the Pacers in Game 3. Andrew Nembhard, I still do not know how you made that shot, but fine. Game 4 on Sunday. If you needed to take a break to, make some food for your dear mother on Mother's Day, etc., that was the game to do it. The Pacers jumped on the Knicks very early, ended up being a 121-89 victory. The series is tied at 2 games apiece. And I think if I was to try to figure out a theme for those 2 games, I'd probably start with Indiana's defense. It's felt like one, just a doubling down on we are going to be physical off the ball so we can muck up your actions. When you inbound the ball, there will be a body, maybe sometimes two, depending on who else is back there. We are full court pressuring you. We're going to make you work. And within the defense, I have to give the hat tip and hold a small L for Aaron Nesmith and the work that he's been able to do against Jalen Brunson. If you watch those regular season games between the Knicks and the Pacers, whenever Aaron Nesmith was matched up against Jalen Brunson, Brunson was able to get to his spots. Instead of fly off screens off ball, Nesmith would try to be physical, but Brunson would get the ball, get to his spots. He looked comfortable. And even within the first two games of this series, in the straight possessions where you see Nesmith matched up against Brunson, Brunson largely got to his spots and got to the shots that he wanted to get to. But over games 3 and game 4, Aaron Nesmith became the primary defender instead of Andrew Nembhard. And he was largely up for the challenge. He was a part of the full court pressure, maintained the physicality off the ball. The screen navigation with handoffs and pick and rolls were pretty strong. Nesmith contested well. 7 fouls across the 2 games. So we didn't get the full-blown like Aaron Nesmith foul trouble game. Per second spectrum, with Nesmith as the primary contester against Jalen Brunson's shots, Brunson shot 8 of 26 across these last 2 games, 30.8%. Nesmith has also defended 26 drives for Jalen Brunson, the Knicks generating under 0.7 points per possession on those trips. I just have to give the salute to Aaron Nesmith and the Knicks defense overall. And that's allowed them to be able to get out and run. They've been able to push after more misses. As we've talked about with the Pacers all year long, and especially in this postseason, they are a team that will push after turnovers. They will push after misses. And even if you make a shot, they're outletting up ahead and they're pushing after that too. And I think the defense being able to tighten up a little bit, you get Brunson out of rhythm. You haven't really had the secondary creation over the last couple of games. You haven't had the supplemental drives or pull-ups from OG Anunoby as he's out. Dante DiVincenzo surely is trying his best. Miles McBride trying his best. But you haven't had the consistent punch from those guys. It's made it a little bit easier for Indiana to get stops and ultimately run. And the series has just felt more like Pacer basketball over the last 2 games. So I think I start with the defense.
The Indiana Pacers and defense, something we have not mentioned together very much this season. I will say the Pacers being able to be in a playoff series and be able to have a playoff game plan and a singular focus and lock in on one thing, I think does speak volumes. I thought the defense really stood out. They've been working in game 3, but game 4, I thought they took it to a different level. Being able to lock into certain things, I think was a huge thing. They battled. I thought the activity was great. I thought the ball pressure was great. When you look at what the Knicks have tried to do, obviously Jalen Brunson, key part of it. Aaron Nesmith has been able to evolve and hold up his end of the bargain, screen navigation, staying down, to making it tough to get to his spots, pressuring. And now you also have the blend of, hey, it might be TJ McConnell giving you a different look, might be Nembhard, but we can kind of flow. The help that they showed on Jalen Brunson's drives, I thought the timing was really good. The other thing they did was they did a great job defending off ball in this game. The Knicks, over the course of the series, over the course of the season, they've been trying to mix in more movement, trying to mix in Brunson in more movement. The Pacers were active. They were working to deny. They were pushing catches out. They were disruptive. And I think that was important, especially in a game like this where Knicks are working to try and find their tempo. Maybe that ball pressure, you're starting to settle a bit later in the clock. If they're active and they can't flow from option to option, now you're getting deeper in that shot clock. Indiana, as you mentioned, is going to push off every stop. They really hammered that in game 4. Stop, push, score. You got to do it again. That can be a tough formula. So I think the Pacers defense was a big key in that win. The Knicks, they can't afford to not score, Nekias.
Yeah.
They can't have a night where Jalen Brunson and Dante are both off, which is funny considering game 3, you mentioned the Nembhard 3, you got the massive Dante game, and you got the Alec Burks I'm here game. And if you win that one, you're up 3-0. Even if you lost game 4, it's 3-1. Instead, it's 2-2. I think that the Knicks are going to have to work to unlock Jalen Brunson, and they need Dante DiVincenzo a whole lot more than we may have anticipated offensively. They have to just get their tempo back up on offense. They got to get the Pacers back in rotation, get the drives going, get the cuts going, force the Pacers to sink in and now play out of it. We didn't see as much of that in that game 4. Play through Hartenstein, just run through your stuff a little bit quicker. I just wonder how they're going to do it. Do they try and mix back in the high pick and rolls for Brunson? Do they go to matchup hunting, try and loosen things up for Brunson? We saw them tap the Tyrese Halliburton button a lot in game 3. Finally actually got Halliburton to switch a couple times. Unfortunately, the Pacers immediately went to switch and double. So just intrigued to see what they try and unlock going forward.
Got you. And just to quickly bounce off of the defense point, you mentioned the activity that they've shown against Jalen Brunson off the ball. In the first 2 games of the series, Jalen Brunson received 28 off-ball screens, the Knicks generating nearly 1.3 points per possession on those drives. Those off-ball screens led to a touch nearly 68% of the times, led to a shot nearly 29% of the time. Over the last 2 games, 0.73 points per possession on those trips, led to a touch half the time, led to a shot 32.1% of the time. They are doing a really good job of not just making his looks tough when he gets them, but also just flat out denying him and making the Knicks go to something else. And if you're able to bleed clock for New York right now with all the bodies that they're missing, it just makes it that much tougher for them to find a rhythm offensively. And it just kind of takes me back to the beginning of the series preview with these 2 teams, where I was like, this feels like, heading in, a series that the Knicks either win early, they just establish themselves, they're physical, the Pacers can't get going to the same degree, they continue their momentum, they win, or it becomes a bit of a war of attrition. Now, I did not anticipate Jalen Brunson being more banged up. You get the OG Anunoby hamstring, Mitch Robinson's out, Bojan is out. Like, it's becoming more dire than even I anticipated. But this is where, to circle back to what you said with the game 3, this is where it doubly hurts that you weren't able to grab that one. Because now it's a win best 2 out of 3. And, I don't know if the Knicks run out of gas, but at the very least, it's more likely that they do just because of everything they're dealing with. And it's not like the Indiana Pacers are perfect in health either. Like Tyrese Halliburton playing hurt. They haven't had Benedict Mathurin. So like you can point to things on both sides. But for the Knicks, with how short the rotation has been, it is becoming dicier for them. It's not impossible, but it's becoming dicier for them. So I'm intrigued to see what that looks like. And
before you go, let's talk about the rotation talks. That appears, along with referees, to be a topic of discussion when it comes to this basketball series. So one thing I will note, Josh Hart actually got a rest. Man played 48 in game 1, 48 in game 2, only 43 in game 3. So the Knicks have been through this. I think this is, you can't schedule for all of the depth to go away, considering you built it to have people in this moment and they're all banged up. I think for the Knicks, it's knowing the people that you have. This is all you got. There is a flip side to where the minutes are going to be there. So we can play with a different kind of aggression. We can play with a different kind of attack. There's not that many people that are going to come in for me. So that could unlock things in the Garden to a degree. I think that a lot of these guys have experienced playing heavy minutes, and they've still been trying to work to manage Jalen Brunson's minutes, which I think is impressive. The issue with it is this specific matchup for me. This is a matchup where you have to execute offensively and spend energy there, and then defensively, they keep the pressure on you. So you have to get back in transition. You got to get matched up. You got to help. You got to recover. You got to close out. And that's where I think I felt your point in game 4. Indiana was playing with a punch of pace. It felt like the Knicks were either always in rotation or be late on the last rotation every time.
Yeah.
Activity, help, recover, 2 people fly out, and then an extra pass and stare. That's where I was wondering, okay, has the juice left a little bit? And they can't afford that because they're built on defense. That defense is built on help and rotations. And so they're going to have to find it in this matchup if they're going to want to win 2 of these last 3.
Yeah. As you said that, like I thought of a possession in that first, I want to say first quarter. It was definitely the first half where Indiana was able to push super early against New York. You get that swing, you get the rotation, 2 guys fly to 1, and then it's an extra pass. And Tyrese Halliburton is standing by himself above the break with no one within 10 feet of him. It's like, that's probably not the guy you want to leave open, which very quickly to segue into Indy's offense. And we've talked a lot about them pushing pace. The primary pusher of that pace is Tyrese Halliburton. 6 points on 6 shots in game 1. Since then, 34-6-9, 35-4-7, and then 26-5, quieter in the box score. But again, the Pacers just blew the Knicks out of the building in that first half, and he only played 28 minutes in that game. Tyrese Halliburton is starting to look more comfortable. And that is a terrifying sign in its own right, just because Tyrese Halliburton is really good at basketball. But within the context of we missing bodies, the Pacers keep going and going and going. We got to figure out some stuff with the rotation, et cetera. If Tyrese Halliburton is one knocking down threes, in which that has firmly come back for him, shooting 46% from three, I think, over the last 3 games. If the drives are back for him, which they largely seem to be, we're seeing him get deeper into the paint when he gets downhill. We're seeing those rejects lead into deeper paint touches and kicks from there. He's actually looking for a shot on some of these drives. If you're starting to get that blend from Tyrese Halliburton on top of everything else, it really gets difficult for this Knicks team. Again, not impossible, but it certainly gets tough. It certainly gets tough.
Well, I think in this type of series, it becomes what can you live with? And we've seen the Knicks have good activity and good defense and be able to bog the Pacers down. The thing about the Indiana Pacers is beyond the pace and tempo, they're a collective. They're a group. And you see how tough they are to deal with when Tyrese Halliburton is playing at this level, when Pascal Siakam feels more comfortable, when Miles Turner is able to ding you in different ways. And you have that unit going with the addition of Obi Toppin and TJ McConnell and the bench unit playing with that kind of energy and that kind of pace and executing and driving the ball and being able to score. When they're able to have that kind of wave, it's really tough to deal with. And I think that, to me, the sneakier part of this series, if you're a Knicks fan, is the comfort of the Pacers going into these last 3 games. Very sneakily, Halliburton, Siakam, Turner have played a lot better. They played well. And that can really help pay off for the Pacers in the half court if you do get them to slow down, if you are able to recover and transition or off a quick push. If they can lean on those things, that's huge. Siakam has felt more comfortable with some of these matchups, both on the perimeter and in the post. That's something the Pacers can lean on. And you have to remember in the series, even when OG was in, the Knicks didn't feel the most comfortable just switching Siakam pick and rolls. And that opened things up for the Pacers. And, even I think game 4, the Knicks tried to force a couple of his screens to the side when he was a screener. That opened him up on the short roll. So is that something Indiana can lean on? I think with Miles Turner, obviously we know he could space, he can roll, he could pop, short roll. It's been fantastic for the Pacers in the postseason. You got to remember in the series, the Knicks have not had the most fun working to contain Tyrese Halliburton attacking space and recover to Miles Turner. We've seen some clean reps as far as, let's go with a late switch or Dante's able to recover, the big gets back out. But that's something that they've been able to ding. So it's on the Knicks to have clean coverages in the half court and to try and take some of those things away. You need to make Pascal a little bit more uncomfortable. You need to make Tyrese, his point need to be closer to his field goal attempts. You got to try and take Miles Turner off the board. And that way, that'll give your defense the best chance.
Yeah. Hashtag bring back the tour dates if you want to have a better chance of success if you're the New York Knicks. Also, just a quiet thing on this Pascal front defensively, as the Pacers have worked to have him as a helper. Interesting that we saw in the game for him on Josh Hart a little bit more. Moving Tyrese Halliburton around, but now you have Pascal Siakam on Josh Hart. And watching Pascal just kind of firmly plant himself at the nail early. Like, hey, if you want to get downhill, or if we're putting 2 on the ball against Jalen Brunson, you want Isaiah Hartenstein to short roll, you're rolling right into Pascal Siakam. Again, not going to completely take you away, but we're going to make this tougher for you. We want to restrict some of the space that you're seeing as the overall goal for Indiana's defense there. So that's something to keep an eye on as well moving forward. Any other notes or questions you want to hit on Knicks Pacers?
Well, this is the fun of this series. Both sides have shown what they can do, how they can win, and now who's going to get it done? Can Indiana take what they found and take it over to the Garden, or will New York be reinvigorated and they get the Pacers back in the mud? They are able to get some open shots, knock them down with confidence, and put the pressure right back on Indy.
There we go. And I had to say very quickly on the player shout out front, our dear listeners or watchers, if you look outside of your window, you may see TJ McConnell with a basketball looking to drive once again. He has just been a constant state of rim pressure this entire season, really. But you really felt in the postseason. Game 4, 15 points, 10 assists, 2 steals off the bench. He's just lived in the paint. I've had a lot of fun watching Obi Toppin during this postseason run. Like, he's been a lot more impactful offensively than I thought he would. It feels like you could just feel him get excited when he gets to take some of those run capping or run quelling threes around the wing. It's like, yeah, nah, y'all thought you could leave me open. Nah, I'm here. We got the between the legs dunk from Obi Toppin. I've just had a lot of fun with Obi Toppin. Shout out to the Pacer bench. So I will leave that there. We will now move to what was the second game of the night on Sunday. And we can flow into those two games. The Denver Nuggets tying things up. A 117-90 victory over the Wolves over the weekend, and then a 115-107 victory on Sunday night. The series is now tied at 2 games apiece. As the old adage goes, the series doesn't start until the home team wins a game, apparently. I guess we will see what happens on that front. But I think for me, it starts with Denver's offense starting to look more and more like Denver's offense. It feels like the Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic 2-man game is starting to gain some steam. And that starts with Jamal Murray doing a better job of exploiting the space. We're starting to see some of the movement jumpers fall for him. We're starting to see some of the floaters fall. The shot making is coming back around. And I think that's putting a lot of pressure on, particularly when it's Karl-Anthony Towns defending the pick and roll. Oh, I have to commit a little bit more to Jamal Murray. He's turned the corner a little bit more. I have to show him a body. That's opening up some of the short roll opportunities for Nikola Jokic. And he's back to making those shots, between the free throw line and the restricted area. He's back to making those push shots. He's back to making those floaters. And ultimately, if Murray is starting to get going and Jokic is now starting to pick you apart in the intermediate area, that's going to force likely Rudy Gobert, as he's been defending Aaron Gordon throughout the series. Oh, I got to commit a little bit earlier to Nikola Jokic. I can't let him continue to be comfortable. And that's opening up these lay down passes for Aaron Gordon. And the Nuggets in general have also just done a good job of moving Aaron Gordon around. It just feels like the Nuggets look a little bit more like the Nuggets offensively. And that is not ideal if you're the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Well, number one, what a great series this is. In all due respect to Nuggets fans, Timberwolves fans, I need 7 games of this. You can tell me I'm going to get that moment between Jamal Murray and Kevin Harlan. We'll also get a moment with Anthony Edwards clapping at Jamal Murray after the game. And also Anthony Edwards ending his press conference saying he's sick of Aaron Gordon. I need that. This is fun hoops, real hoops. I think the biggest key when it comes to this one is we've seen both teams' paths. We saw what Minnesota took away from the menu for the Denver Nuggets. We saw the Denver Nuggets work to reintroduce that. And so it's even. It's 2-2. We talked about this, and it's like, hey, at Denver, whatever you got to do, you have to do it. Because what Minnesota has presented can end this series. But Denver has gone ahead and countered and made the moves they need to make to reintroduce, hey, this is still a problem. So if you think about it, Jamal Murray, I'm glad you mentioned it, him making shots changes that philosophy of, hey, we can live with that. Okay. He's making you pay on the ones that you can live with. He's making you pay on the ones you definitely think you could live with. The contested ones, McDaniels all over him, tremendous defense, hounding him all over. That was hell.
Just hits a step back.
That was hell in a cell, not like us material in that game 2. That was a step back in game 4. That's how quickly things can change. I think what you have here, Rudy Gobert and his help off Aaron Gordon, Denver, 1, doing a better job of moving Aaron Gordon around the court. And number 2, you got to look at what they've done to just counter that attack. Clearing the wings out for Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray to operate. If Cat's going to be in a drop or he's going to be close to the level, Jamal Murray has more space to get downhill to engage that. Nikola Jokic now has more room to kind of get to that short roll and catch where he wants to. There's no help defender getting in his way. And if you've noticed in game 3 and game 4, Nikola Jokic on his catch, he is surveying immediately. When he catches that ball, he is looking to see where's Rudy, where's the help, where are we going? So even if you recover, Jokic is going to work. And he's stopping short of where Rudy is.
Oh, no, I was just, as you were saying that, like I thought about a pair of passes from Nikola Jokic in the game 4 in particular, to where he just played with the Rudy Gobert help. Like, here's a nice dump off to Aaron Gordon. And I think there was also a shot a little bit earlier in the game against Naz Reid. Let me see where the help is coming from here. Oh, I'll just pump fake, you flop by, I'll get a short jumper going. Like, Jokic has done such a great job of mapping out where everyone's going to be and how they're going to react. And just kind of counterpunching from there. I just wanted to sprinkle that in real quick.
I'm glad you sprinkled that in as I was about to get to it, bud.
Oh, my fault, OG.
It's all right. The old school promo, you got to build it up. But Jokic, in doing so, now can pick his spots. And now is going to make you make a decision. And so on those moments, as you mentioned, when Minnesota did commit, he was waiting for the commit. He was waiting for that to happen, and now he can make that pass. If you're going to show a double or you're going to show help and there's a cut, he's skip passing. And now it opens things up. So now you have the combination of those two playing well with Aaron Gordon making shots. And the thing about Aaron Gordon, he does not have to replicate that performance the rest of the series. He just needs to make timely baskets, timely cuts. And so if you get in a scenario where, we're reacting to Murray and, we're reacting to Jokic, and now it's a skip pass because Rudy's help is automatic. So even if Aaron Gordon's at the dunker on the strong side, if he's on the weak side corner, Rudy's going to make that move. Now we get to skip to Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon's making shots. Another close. Now you get openings. And that's where Denver starts to rebuild that back up for themselves. And it could be a collective. Reggie Jackson, timely threes. Justin Holiday, timely threes. MPJ had a good game 3. I don't think we've had a KCP game yet.
No.
And that's the dangerous part if you're Minnesota. Now, I will say, for Minnesota, the work is we have to just take something off the table. We got to get back into Jamal Murray and make it tough for him to make those decisions. We have to get back to at least making Jokic not as automatic. And I don't know if they want to mix in double teams like they did in game 2. I don't know if they want to mix in how they want to get there, but that's something they're going to have to do. Or Nekias, they can score.
Will be helpful.
That's been the other part of this program. It's not Anthony Edwards, who, again, if I can just quickly check, 33 points a night in this series, 5 assists, 60.5 shooting from the field, 44% from 3. He's made the right plays, attacked early in transition, adjusted to Jokic being at the level. Let me just scoop by you real quick. Or, you did the corral trap. Let me just go ahead and wait for you to leave and go the other way and get to my spots. It ties back to what Coach Michael Malone said after game 1. It's Cat, it's Mike Conley, it's Naz Reid. We can't have all of those people hurting us. Like Anthony Edwards and the Stars, they are the Stars. And yes, you do not want them to have the kind of performances that Anthony Edwards has put forth every single night. But they have the star ability to do that. So sometimes you got to live with it. It's hard to live with that when Cat is dinging you, when Mike Conley is hurting you, and Naz Reid is driving all over the place. Now it becomes untenable. So if I'm Minnesota, we got to get back to our movement. We can't let these switches bother us. We can't let Denver putting Jokic on the block and planning it bother us. And I think the big one is probably Cat, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to come from like a super critical thing. He's just very important for this Wolves team, and he's very important in this series. And I thought, I've had a question mark for like the last 2 years when it comes to Cat and how he would handle the playoffs. And he's passed every test so far, especially in this series, first 2 games. One of my playoff questions was, hey, how does he deal with Aaron Gordon? He dealt with it.
Yeah. The
drives were there. He was attacking that matchup. You think you can switch smaller guys on me? I'm going to make quick decisions. I'm going to hurt you when I'm at the 5. And I can pick and pop. When he has those layers and those levels, it's hard to deal with. But then Denver said, hey, you know what, buddy? A possession burned my brain. He got a switch. I think it was against Jamal Murray. Immediately caught and ran through his chest, got a foul. And then Denver was like, hey, we're going to double those. So they threw a double at Cat. He kicked it out. Minnesota didn't score. But in my head, I was like, I'm interested. I'm interested by that. Now the Cat gets a post-up against Aaron Gordon. Catch, hold, wait. Not ideal. So now the quick decisions off the table. I'm waiting. Are you helping? Are you doubling? Now you got to deal with Aaron Gordon. He's loaded up. Helps loaded up. So can he refine that and put his offense back on the board?
And just to quickly bounce off of that point, numbers-wise, 13 drives for Cat in 2 wins, about a point per possession on those trips. In the 2 losses, 14 drives for Cat, 0.64 points per possession on those trips. Just to, again, compliment the fact that those drives are important. When they hit, the offense looks different. When they do not, the offense looks different. Derogatory. As you mentioned, Minnesota has to score. The fact that Denver has been able to score, I think, aids the defense in this case. It's where, okay, you're pulling the ball out of the basket. We have more of an opportunity to kind of load up and prepare for whatever the Cat touches are going to be. Because I think in terms of like the actions that they're running for Cat, where they're posting him, where he's catching the ball, Like, that hasn't been super different these last two games versus the first two. I think to help being able to load up a little bit more, and Minnesota generally having to play a little bit slower because Denver's able to set themselves, excuse me. It's made it a little bit more difficult for Cat to establish a rhythm. He isn't able to catch them off tilt as often as he was in the first two games. So I think that's going to be very important. It's going to be something to watch moving forward on that front. I'll also say, just to zoom back out, the battle of Murray and Jokic are really good. We need to take away space. And the Nuggets saying, how can we create space, has just been my favorite theme of the whole series. Like, it's just been incredibly fun to watch there. And like something that I've keyed in on, like during the watch parties, I think I talked about it a little bit on the pod, is Minnesota bringing this full court pressure to Denver. But let's make you uncomfortable. We may not turn you over on some of these. We are going to turn you a couple of times. You're going to start your actions with 14 on the clock now because we're pressing you. And so to watch that evolve from here's the pressure to the game 3 coming, and Denver's like, you know what? We're inbounding. I see Jaden McDaniels just in Jamal Murray's jersey before we inbound it. Let me just toss this to Aaron Gordon. You bring the ball up, and now we can just flow into some stuff. Let's engage Rudy early, since Rudy had the Aaron Gordon assignment. Fine, let's just flow into a handoff while Rudy's in a drop. Let's get into our offense a little bit easier. And to watch Minnesota double down in game 4, it's like, yeah, you know what, fine, bet. Cat, you are picking up in the backcourt now. Naz Reid, you are also picking up in the backcourt now. Rudy Gobert, you are just meeting someone at half court. And they try to cross over.
Yeah,
and
Jokic went HB counter.
He sure did.
Hey, here's a foul for you. Here's a foul for you. Here's a foul for you, buddy.
He sure did. And like, it's just been fun watching that kind of, I know what you're trying to do. We're going to do this. Oh, I see how you're trying to counter this. We're going to ramp this back up. Like, it's just been one of my favorite battles. Like, I have numbers on that front. I don't even care about the numbers in this case. That's just fun to watch for me.
All right, can we get that clip? That's our promo clip. I need one evidence of Nekias saying, I don't care about the numbers on that one. Real hoop.
Real hoop, indeed. I will sprinkle in one number on the Jokic shots. During the regular season, 62.5% from the field on those shots. In the paint, non-restricted area, per second spectrum. That was number 1 in the NBA. Led the NBA in attempts. Led him in field goal percentage among players that took at least 100 of those. First 2 games of the series, he shot 52.6% on those shots, which is solid, but well below where he was in the regular season. Over the last 2 games, do you want to guess what Jokic is shooting on those shots?
77%.
A little bit lower, but you're not that far off. 69.6%.
Nice.
On those shots. Gosh darn it. And it's a palindrome. Double that. But yeah, Jokic is firmly back on those shots. Minnesota has to work to make him uncomfortable. That's the question I would ask you while we're talking about Jokic and just the general defense. We've seen some of the chatter. How have you felt about the Rudy Gobert defense so far? Or how have you felt about it over the last 2 games specifically?
One, I would say I'm a little bit more concerned with how little Denver cares about his roles. Despite Coach Michael Malone wanting to make sure they never give up a role to Rudy. Mm-hmm. But defensively, here's the problem. You go back to game 1, I said to you while we were watching the game, hey, this flipped once Rudy started guarding Jokic. And Jokic started going to work. Mm-hmm. Jokic has enjoyed that matchup one-on-one. And he always has. That's just something you have to deal with. Try to make it tough. It's all that good stuff.
Yeah.
The key is going to be, can he get back into a position where he's able to help and impact that way? I think that's it for me. What's going to be his counter to the counter? Because his timing was very good in game 1. I mean, some of the best timing we've seen on Jokic's short roll, Gordon at the dunker spot, stunt recover. He actually got to a lob. We haven't seen that a bunch. How does he find it versus Jokic saying, I truly don't care. I'm going to score. I'm also not going that far. Mm-hmm. Does he double down? Does he come earlier? You know, because I think he's willing to live with Aaron Gordon making plays, making shots. The only problem is Aaron Gordon only has to make so many if Jokic and Murray are playing like this. So I think it's more so, can he find the gaps in his help defense? Can he reestablish himself as a rim protector or disruptor? And what does that do for Minnesota? So I'm sure there was some, oh, you played him off the floor chatter. I'm not there. It's a pure scheme game plan they're trying that was effective. The thing about every scheme, it does have a counter. And, you know, you either do it better or you adjust to something else. So I would say probably just his one-on-one matchup against Jokic and the roles are more concerning for me.
I got you. So, in short, we have reached a Rudy Gobert postseason in which the offense is quietly more of a problem than the defense, but people are focusing in on the defense because it's easier to see people score points. I, for one, am shocked that this has become a development once again.
I don't know what you did there, but I'm going to take it as disrespect. What that mean?
No, because it just, as you like quickly alluded to, like the Rudy getting played off the floor thing, where I'm just like, no. I'm glad you immediately brought up the roles and the lack of impact we've seen over the past couple of games for Rudy. Like, that's a bigger issue than like Jokic making Rudy look like a 71 overall. Like, I don't think it's been that. To your point, Jokic does look comfortable against Rudy, but didn't we just name Nikola Jokic the MVP for the third time in like the last 5 seasons? Haven't we all kind of acknowledged that he is the best player in the world? If not the best, he's at least like top 3. Also, didn't we just watch a final series where like Bam Adebayo, who may just be the best defender in the world, fought his tail off and like Jokic still had answers because he's Jokic? Like at a certain point, it just kind of goes into like, I don't want to go full rant. We got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. It's just the way that basketball is talked about sometimes. Where a team or a player does something or a team does something to the other team or player, and it's, wow, you sure do stink, instead of, that guy or that player must be really good to make this team or this player look like this.
No, they're fraudulent.
Well, it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, it does. They're fraudulent. Fraud. Now they're not frauds. The other people are frauds. Nah, see, I told you that's what's gonna happen. Nah, it wasn't Jokic. It was Kyle Anderson playing. Nah, man, the refs. Nah, the altitude. Jokic was only +3.
It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. I'm glad you jokingly mentioned Kyle Anderson. How concerned are you about those minutes?
I'm not.
Okay.
I mean, it's not
like it is kind of start that they've just been blitzed in his minutes, and they're like not guarding him when he doesn't have the ball, and also
it's not great. But how much of that is also we're doing a better job on other people as well?
Yeah.
Because it's not like Kyle Anderson just re-entered the series these last 2 games. He has value, he has flaws, but I mean, he's going to play. His ability to play lets you have Naz Reid do 19 different other things offensively and fly off screens. So, I mean, it's just finding the balance. I personally am not a fan of just saying, hey, this one thing, it's terrible. But, I try and share knowledge on the game. I get well actually all the time.
Friends, I don't think you should well actually, Steve.
No, keep doing it.
Friends continue to well actually, Steve.
Yeet.
Gosh darn it. All right, just to empty some notes real quick before we move forward. On the Murray Jokic 2-man game, just circling back as they have been, again, very effective over the last 2 games. In games 1 and 2, on pick and rolls, 1 point per possession and 1.1 points per possession on dribble handoffs. In games 3 and 4, 1.21 points per possession on pick and roll, 1.23 points per possession on dribble handoffs. Both of those numbers are a lot higher than the regular season figures for both of those guys as well. Again, just putting numbers on what we've all been seeing. That partnership just looks more comfortable on what's happening on that front. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, did you have another one?
A quick one on like Jokic Gobert.
Go ahead.
But yeah. I just had fun looking this one up because as we've seen and as you pointed out, like when Jokic sees Gobert one-on-one, like he is just kind of timing it out, driving into his chest, getting to his spots, etc. With Gobert as the primary contester against Jokic so far in the series, Jokic converting roughly 52% of his shots versus everyone else that drops to 49.1%. But in terms of the expected shot quality of the Jokic looks, this coming from Second Spectrum, the expected effective field goal percentage for Jokic on these shots contested by Gobert, 43.9%. Safe to say Jokic outperforming that number by quite a bit. Against everyone else, 50.4%. So underperforming a little bit against those two.
So to clarify, you went from I don't need the numbers to dropping that number in the same segment.
Correct. I didn't need the numbers on the full court press point. Did not include anything else.
You lied about your numbers. You lied about analytics. You lied about all the spectrums that was in it.
Oh, you know what? Fair enough. Okay. Boston, Cleveland. That is tremendous. Goodness. Yeah. Dear Dunkers. Okay, anyway. The Cavs with a 118-94 victory in game 2 over the Boston Celtics. Celtics getting to get back in game 3 with a 106-93 victory. The Celtics lead the series right now 2-1. I guess 2 things for me, just to kind of sum those 2 games up. Like, one, the Jays for Boston have just put a lot of strain on Cleveland this entire series, honestly. Like, even in the loss, it was more so like Jason Tatum underperformed. We didn't have the huge night from Jaylen Brown. But it just feels like they draw so much attention, and both of those guys have generally done a really good job getting downhill. More so Jaylen Brown as far as the pure driving and scoring portion of the program. Jaylen Brown has often set the tone in these games so far through the series, but he's been very good getting downhill. The Celtics have been able to kind of flow out of that. And for Cleveland, as we saw in the game too, the pathway is there. Like we talked about it ahead of the series. Against Al Horford, I'll spoil it. If you want to get another bar together, I do have some numbers on Al Horford defending pick and rolls in the series so far. But with Al Horford, you're going to get a drop. It's going to be a little bit deeper. If you're able to ding that coverage enough, you may be able to force Boston to do something else, or at the very least, you have a consistent avenue of generating good shots. And if you can defend well enough on the other end, we've seen a lot of switching from Cleveland. In particular, if you're able to defend well enough, you have a pathway to success. And I think we saw that in the game too. We've seen Donovan Mitchell take space. We've seen Darius Garland take space. We'd like to see Darius Garland be more consistent. We'll get into that as we talk about this 2-game sample. But the avenues are there. And then you sprinkle in Karis LeVert shot creation, some timely drives from Isaac Okoro. In the game 2 in particular, Max Strus continuously getting downhill and dropping off lay-down passes for Evan Mobley. There are ways for Cleveland to do this. And we saw it in the first half of the game 3 as well. Like, they can compete with these guys. But man, Boston's talented. And when you actually have the capital G game for Jason Tatum, he scored over 30, so I guess that means he's good at basketball now. But when you have that and the Jaylen Brown drives and the Jaylen Brown pull-ups, and you also have Drew Holiday announcing himself in the series as a scorer on top of that, you just kind of see the overall talent gap between Boston and Cleveland. And so I don't want to reduce it to if Boston does what they're supposed to do, they win. Because even if they do, like Cleveland can still do that. But looking at the game 2 and the game 3 split in particular, you can kind of see the dichotomy of this is what happens when Cleveland hits the buttons, and this is what can happen when Boston hits the buttons. And so that's kind of my early takeaway.
I'd echo that. I think Cleveland has shown, even in that game 1, we can compete. And in that game 2, you win in Boston, but should let you know we can compete. The problem for Cleveland is they don't have a high margin for error in this series, especially if Boston is executing and doing what they need to do. So we saw Cleveland go ahead and lean in defensively. We're okay with some more of these switches. Garland, not so much, but we're okay with some of these switches. You saw the response in game 3 with Boston being like, well, we'll drive. Here's Jason Tatum drive. Here's Jaylen Brown drive. Here's Drew Holiday drive. Oh, yeah, that's right. You don't want Darius Garland to switch. Here's Drew Holiday screen. Oh, that's 2 on the ball. Let's keep playing and generate the shots we want to. I think where it becomes tough for Cleveland is when Boston's able to make the plays that takes away their ability to defend with conviction. Because as game 2 drew on, they were able to, no, we got these switches. We'll keep it in front. We've got them where we want them. If now Jaylen Brown is able to drive against Isaac Okoro, that's not a positive. Because it goes against your theory of, hey, let's bog you down.
Yeah.
The bog down has not had the same effect. Because now it's a drive, you got to help, it's kick. And you don't have the same margin for error with your help defense that you had against Orlando. Now it's a Jaylen Brown pull-up 3. It's a Drew Holiday pull-up 3. They're able to sprinkle those in. And so you have to just keep your pedal on it. I think offensively, Donovan Mitchell's been game. Donovan Mitchell's been here. Donovan Mitchell has wanted to see Al Horford at any point in time on the basketball court. You can do whatever you like. I'm going to go ahead and score. They need Evan Mobley, especially if Boston's going to mix in more switches. He's going to have to be someone that can punish those in the post. He's going to have to be someone who can finish on the roll when Darius Garland's involved. Darius Garland is going to have to be aggressive with a capital A and select however many letters you want to after that. They need him. I mean, he did a good job in game 2 against the drop. He did such a good job that they said, hey, situationally, Al Horford gets to the level. That should be a win for Cleveland. It wasn't the biggest win for Cleveland. And so he's going to have to make those plays depending on the coverage. He's going to have to make them pay with shots. He's going to have to get in the paint and drive and create opportunities for them. I think the switching hurts Max Strus a little bit to a degree, to where some of the movement stuff's off the table, but Cleveland just needs to lean into that and be like, hey, I know you guys are doing this, but let's counter. Let's keep our flow up. So there's an avenue for Cleveland. But you credit Boston for doing what they're supposed to do and responding. And I think the consistency of, hey, we believe in our defense. We believe if we take this away, we'll be fine. Jason Tatum drive, Jaylen Brown drive. I just appreciated the overall effort from Boston in this type of series where, hey, we need to resend the message that while you got a shot, it's not a big one.
Yeah, it's been like that. As you mentioned, the Jays and their drives, both guys with 39 drives in the series so far, 1.25 points per possession on possessions featuring a Jaylen Brown drive, 1.15 for Tatum, both very good numbers. And then Donovan Mitchell, who's also had a good driving series, 41 leads the series, shade under 1.1 points per possession on those trips. 95 pick and rolls for Donovan Mitchell so far, over 1.3 points per possession. And when Al Horford is the screener defender, that number skyrockets to 1.6 points per possession. It has been on site every time Donovan Mitchell has seen Al Horford in whatever capacity it is. Oh, you're in a drop. That's a pull-up. Oh, you're creeping up. I can just split or shoot over you anyway. Oh, this is a switch. I can get to where I want to and get to the shot that I want to get to. I've been so impressed with Donovan Mitchell throughout this entire playoff run, honestly. We saw how he kind of slammed the door in the back end of the Orlando series. He's been here emotionally for sure within the first 3 games of this series. And he's at, 32, 6, and 5 through the first 3 games of this series? He's shooting 50. He is shooting 53% from 3 on 10 attempts a game through 3 games. That's not what it's supposed to look like against a team and a defense that is this good. Like, you are seeing a heavy dose of Drew Holiday. Now, naturally, Boston switches a bunch, etc. But look at the defensive personnel that Boston has, and Donovan Mitchell has largely just been able to get downhill and sprinkling in pull-ups to boot. It's not even sprinkling in; he's pouring in pull-ups with that kind of volume.
Hey, remember we did this podcast? We did a preview, and I said, "Hey, what if Donovan Mitchell looks more free in this matchup, despite the defensive personnel that Boston has?"
Yes.
Hey, maybe y'all should listen to me more.
As you mentioned, the Max Strus switching and just, switching these things. I feel like that was also mentioned on an episode of the Dunker Spot. But
it's my victory lap.
I'm in the car with you, bud.
This one's mine. No, you take your own later.
You know what? Fair enough. We'll let that rock. Just circling back to the game 3s. We talked about the drives. And something that you mentioned during the watch party, who was watching that one live. Boston in transition. They really deemed Cleveland, it felt like. Or at the very least, they got downhill quickly. Even if they didn't make the shots, they were just putting immediate pressure on that Cleveland transition defense. And look, go ahead.
Well, also to reverse, they did a good job in transition on defense. Mm-hmm. They really worked to make sure Cleveland didn't get the easy ones, which is where Cleveland, when they're in that down 6, down 8 mode, gets stopped. Never really felt like they could always get it back to 4.
Yeah.
And obviously, that start of third quarter run hurt, but it always felt like there was a distance because Boston was getting back in transition. So I thought that was key. Go ahead.
No, that's a good point. And I was going to say that's also the benefit of Boston building a team like this. Because they have such a collection of rangy defenders, they can just miss a shot and I'll just grab closest body to me because I can just guard this guy. Like, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to pull up a specific possession out of my head right now. But, it doesn't matter if, Evan Mobley's streaking down the middle of the floor if I'm Drew Holiday. I can just pick this up and feel pretty good about it. Versus other teams where we got a point and, hey, I get this guy. I'm going to float to the wing. You do that. Any kind of breakdown just leads to an easy bucket. So, that's just, again, a testament to how good Boston is. And being able to take easy points off the table and then also being able to take easy stuff off the table with your switching and the way that you can mix up your matchups. It's just a lot of fun. We've talked about that throughout the regular season, so it's kind of fun to watch that pop up here. Only other thing I was going to add for the game 3, talked about the transition. Per cleaning the glass, Boston missed 5 shots at the rim in game 3. More importantly, they took 27 shots at the rim in game 3. 22 of 27 is not a feasible number for Cleveland's defense. And I think it feels like the battlegrounds have just kind of been established in this series so far. And so for me, if I'm Cleveland, one, I just want to see a better version of Darius Garland, a more consistently aggressive version of Darius Garland. You've already said that, so I don't want to step all over you. If you can find any kind of pocket in early offense or transition, do so. You got a deep drop, establish those pull-ups, take those floaters, get to those scoops at the rim that you're so good at. I just want to have, I want to see a Garland game because he's good enough. I have no questions about Darius Garland's talent. And I can understand how like frustrating a year this has been for Garland, just in terms of like the injuries and then trying to reintegrate himself alongside Donovan Mitchell and things like that. The passivity's kind of popped up. It's been a weird year for him. I have no questions long term. At least not right now, I don't. But I do want to see him just kind of tap into that. Because he just has the blend of playmaking, pull-up shooting, the floater, scoops, pull-up threes. Like, he can impact this thing. I would love to see a big Garland performance in Game 4. Any closing thoughts or questions before we move to the last series?
Big key. Can they keep getting Tatum the ball near the elbow? Can they keep mixing the post-ups for Brown and Drew? Can they keep the pressure on for Boston? If you're Cleveland, DJ, do you have enough defense? If you have defense, that'll open up a little bit of margin error for you offensively. But you're going to need stops. You're going to need Garland. You're going to need Mitchell. You need Strus and or Mobley. Path is there. You just got to go take it.
There we go. Wise words from Steve Jones Jr. Now, last series we're going to talk about before transitioning to W Talk, getting into some preview things. The Dallas Mavericks with 2 straight wins over the Oklahoma City Thunder to take a 2-1 series lead, a 119-110 victory in Game 2, and a 105-101 victory in Game 3. And I think for me, I've been really impressed with Dallas's defense and also a little concerned about OKC's offense in this one. It just feels like Dallas has bogged OKC down so much over the past couple of games. They have done a really good job. I feel like I've said restricting space a lot on this podcast, so my apologies. If you're doing a drinking game, please don't do that. The Duncan spot does not condone. But it feels like Dallas has done a really good job of restricting space against these OKC drives, against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in particular, where we may give you a switch. You may have a little bit of space early on in your drive. Once you hit the free throw line area, you got a whole bunch of bodies. You're not seeing the same space. And that's on top of Derrick Jones Jr. genuinely doing a good job against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I feel like he's starting to fill out the cadence of what Shai likes to do. It doesn't feel like the fakes that may have worked in Game 1 or when Shai gets into the pivots and tries to flow into duck up and unders and stuff like that. It doesn't feel like Derrick Jones Jr. is biting to the same degree. And again, I more so zoom out and look at just the layers of defense Dallas is showing. You may have that first level. That's fine. One, you got to work hard to get past the DJJ, or if it's PJ Washington or whoever you want to throw at him, you may have to work a little bit to get past that guy. But if you do, because we have now flipped the matchups again, we've seen a lot more. Game 1, we saw Daniel Gafford on Chet. We had Luka on Josh Giddey. As the series has progressed, we've seen more Daniel Gafford on Josh Giddey to keep you near the paint. You get past that first level, you don't have the same space that you were seeing. Shai's been able to score anyway because he's incredible, but because you're not getting the same ease, you're not getting the same comfort, you're also not getting the same breakdowns. And it feels like some of the shots that OKC has been able to generate over the last 2 games have been shots that Dallas is okay with. Oh, we're fine if you're the one taking the corner 3. We're fine if this is Lou Dort. We're fine if this is Josh Giddey. As Aaron Wiggins has gotten more minutes in the series, we've seen Daniel Gafford on Aaron Wiggins too. No, it's fine. We want to make sure you don't win the paint. We want to make sure you don't get to the rim. And without Jalen Williams having a capital J Jalen Williams game yet, and without anyone else really breaking out for like a 25, 30-point performance, it's just felt really tough for OKC.
It's interesting. This is the battle of this series. I've been very impressed by the Dallas defense. They have really worked to help. They've worked to recover. They've worked to battle. They've tried to contain penetration. We cannot forget OKC is a drive and kick team, a drive and cut team. This is kind of what they do. The idea of it in a playoff series is to make things a little bit tougher on Chet, make things a little bit tougher on Jalen Williams, to give our defense more of an opportunity to get a stop and to try and throw you out of your rhythm. And I think it's one thing that you have to remember. OKC did tap some of these buttons against this Dallas defense. So as beautiful as the defense was in the fourth quarter, where that automatic rotation was there from the low man, when we get to the block on this drive, we're in rotation, OKC was able to poke at it. Remember, this doesn't swing until Dallas's defense gets back into this one. They're down 65-58 in third. The defense turned all the way up. And so that is where you tip your cap to the Dallas defense. But also, if you're a team in the playoffs and the defense is needed at this level, I don't want to say they can't win without their defense, but it does get tougher. All it takes is a little couple pokes to open things back up. And now you're in a different game. So for instance, in that most recent game, and I'm interested to see how OKC counters, obviously, by the time that you hear this, game 4 will have happened, or game 5, right? 4. Brain not working. OKC has to shift things. When are your cuts going to happen? Are you going to have screening action on the weak side? I thought they did a really good job of just sneaking around and putting Luka into different matchups. Because, if he's the low man, he's set to help. He did a good job. But now, hey, here's Lou Dort with a little flare screen. Now it's Isaiah Joe in the corner. Oh, no. Isaiah Joe's open. Can they tinker with those kind of things? Will they be more aggressive on some of these closeouts? Because as hard as Dallas worked, you saw OKC, some people would say pass up shots, but finding the balance between driving to score and driving to kick. And can they beat Dallas's rotations? Can they make Dallas sustain that defense over the course of a game? Mm-hmm. That's going to be, I feel like, the key if we're talking about solely the defense. Because here's the thing, guys.
Okay.
Even if you have all the switching, Shea's been making the shots where it doesn't matter what it is. And so, yeah, we could point out the great rotations and everything. If Shea's just going to hit you for a step back 3 or a 2, that's tough. Now, on the other end, that's all you're giving up to Shea. Gets interesting. But I think OKC can move things around the floor. Mark Dadnoff sounded very confident post-game about their ability to reopen some things up offensively. So I would just keep an eye on that.
Or had eyes on it by the time you listen to this, the game would be in. But yeah, that's going to be fun. And I guess just on the Dallas side, I've talked about the defense. Offensively, can I just salute Kyrie Irving really quickly? Because the shots largely haven't fallen for him so far in this series. He's done such a good job of playmaking so far. I think he's really done a good job of puncturing the paint enough to make OKC react. But beyond that, he's doing a really good job of finding guys. And I think just zooming out beyond the playmaking, I feel like the defense has been pretty strong in this series so far for him. It's been a really good, I'm doing everything else series so far for Kyrie. And also, I'll ask you a quick question about the co-star. In terms of the comfort level, do you feel like that's increased for Luka Doncic as the series is going on? Or do you feel like OKC's done a pretty solid job against him?
Define comfort level.
I know what you're trying to do. I can make these reads, either a shot or the pass, or I can get to the X spot. No matter who you have guarding me or what coverage you're tossing at me.
Did you not just define Luka Doncic?
I mean, yes, but
Yeah, he's fine. I think he's felt fine. Have you felt like he's not? Are you hinting at something?
No, not hinting. No, this is genuinely, I want to toss this to you. Like we talked about it last time. I was, just kind of monitoring, okay, how well can he get to these spots? It was more so through a health lens because of the knee. But I just want to see how you felt about just generally how the way that he's moved, the way he's been able to kind of poke at OKC's defense.
I ain't worried about that. Yeah. Man, Luka almost busted his face and started shooting right after. It'll be all right. It's a Kyrie series. It's a Kyrie series. No, that's no disrespect to Luka, but Kyrie's ability to ding OKC's defense is something you have to keep an eye on because against the drop, he's been able to get into the paint and he's been able to open up plays. And that's been a key. And now he mixes in the shot making against the drop. And now he just mixes in the one-on-one drives or the one-on-one buckets. And now you feel like, hey, we got to put 2 on the ball. And buddy, that's exactly what Dallas wants. So if you have that blend with Kyrie, you're able to force help. You have the looming Luka, who has not shot well, I feel like. Or at least made some of the shots that he couldn't make consistently. But you pair that with PJ Washington making OKC pay.
There we go.
That's
56 points over the last 2 for PJ.
That's a massive deciding factor where PJ Washington's giving you that level of consistency. That now becomes a little bit tougher to deal with. To where, okay, We're showing help. We're trying to take away lobs. Trying to make it tough on Luka. Oh, PJ's just making us pay. That's always been the bit for Dallas. Can you make the defense pay? So if all three of those things are going to be on the table and you're making better decisions on the short roll, whether it's Gafford or Lively, depending on the night, at least one of them is going to do it, I feel like. Mm-hmm. Don't know which one every night, but one of them's going to. That's where you put OKC in a little bit of a tougher bind, especially as the game goes on, gets later.
Got you. I'm glad you brought up PJ again. 56 points over his last two games. I guess you will find out later tonight as we record on Monday. But by the time you see this, you will have seen if PJ Washington's been able to keep that up. And I just think about just the abundance of corner threes he's been able to get because of the way OKC is collapsing on Luka or Kyrie. And that's why it kind of led me to look up just the corner three rate for Dallas heading into this one. During the regular season, they led the NBA in the percentage of shots that came from the corners. About 12% per clean the glass. In the series so far, again, through the first three games, 15%, or 15.4% if you want to be precise about it, but over 15%. It's an uptick. So again, it's OKC establishing, we do not want Kyrie to get all the way down here. We do not want Luka to get all the way down here. And when either of those guys are playing two-man game with a Gafford or with a Lively, we don't want y'all tossing lobs either. We want to make sure our help is in early. We want to congest this area. So those shots are there. And because of how aggressively they're helping off, the shots from these specific people are going to be here. And that's where you get this 2-game stretch from PJ Washington. You get in the game 2, Tim Hardaway Jr. just knocking down timely buckets. I think 17 in the game 2, only 8 in the game 3. You get enough from those guys, and then you reverse it to the other side of the floor where it's Shea working hard. He's logged 86 drives through 3 games, which is absurd, even by Shea standards. And he's scoring. Who else is helping him on a consistent basis? Who else is really punishing Dallas on a consistent basis? And with the possession count just generally being lower through at least these last 2 games, it's felt like a slower, more defense-heavy type of feel to it. They need the Jalen Williams game. If Josh Giddey's going to be out there for 12 to 15 minutes, it would be cool if you get like a 2 or 4 from 3 games. Doesn't have to set the nets on fire, but like make 1 or 2 of these compared to the 1 of 8 from 3 that he's had through 3 games of the series so far, which very quickly, Giddey's played 41 minutes through the first 3 games. The Thunder have lost those minutes by 28 points. They are plus 38 in the 189 minutes without Josh Giddey. I do wonder if we enter a point to where he's just not playing anymore. Or if it's just going to continue, because it felt like more just, here's a short run, here's a short run, here's a short run through the first 3. They have the personnel to make that decision if they want. Aaron Wiggins, you just get these minutes. Casey Wallace, you get more minutes. Gordon Hayward, you get some more of these minutes. They can do it. I do wonder if that's going to wind up being an adjustment. Obviously, I don't think OKC wants to get to that point. But I am curious to see if that button is eventually tapped. But I think Luka's just did a really good job. He's one of the best skip passes in the league, period. But it feels like he's done a really good job just in terms of the placement and the timing on those passes, making it easier for PJ Washington to take those shots in rhythm. Tim Hardaway Jr. taking those in rhythm. They've been able to sprinkle those in. Josh Green as well. If you're zooming out for just the first 3 games of the series in general instead of the last 2. I've been impressed. They've been able to generate stuff easier than OKC has been. I think that's kind of the biggest thing I want to hit on in terms of how difficult it's looked for OKC's offense over the last couple of games.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. For Dallas, PJ hitting shots helps. Kyrie getting to his spots helps. Luka can always get to whatever he wants to. Biggest key is you need to find a way to take PJ off the board. You need to make the bigs make decisions. And Chet's done a really good job on the interior of timing up his help. And so does that play a different factor? If you can get Kyrie a little more uncomfortable or at least take the playmaking off the board, does that change things? And then for OKC, it's just re-understanding who you are. Sticking with your drive and kick, timing your cuts up, trying to force a big in to help him recover in a matchup. Force Luka in to help him recover in a matchup. See if you can open up the gaps that way. It's one of those things that's going to be very interesting. OKC does have to put some stuff back on the board. Dallas has done everything they need to do and more. This is the fun of the playoffs.
This is indeed the fun of the playoffs. Just one thing / question before we move to the W section. Just on Chet. 8 of 16 in game 1. He is 9 of 21 in the 2 games since. 13 drives, under 0.8 points per possession on those drives. As I mentioned a little bit earlier about Dallas moving their bigs around to defend Josh Giddey or Aaron Wiggins and putting a bigger wing on Chet Holmgren. He hasn't had the same space or the same opportunities to attack. Very dull analysis here, but OKC is going to have to find ways to get Chet into more favorable positions. And Chet has to make teams pay when he does have that space. If he is going to drive, he's going to have to puncture those with a little bit more force. He's getting into turnarounds. He's going to have to knock those down. When he does have open three opportunities, he's got to take them in rhythm. There can't be hesitation. Like I'm glad you touched on a little bit earlier about some of the swing sequences, particularly in the game 3, the OKC had, and it felt like we're passing up good for good instead of good for great. And in some occasions, we're passing up great for good. It's like, hey, you got a gap. You just kind of have to attack this with how Dallas is defending and how well they're defending overall. So I am just keeping general eyes on Chet offensively in this one. Like I think Jalen Williams getting going is a bigger deal for OKC's offense, but it is worth keeping an eye on what Chet's doing in light of who's guarding him and how they're defending him.
Well, here's the thing. You're not incorrect. I think Kyrie being able to hold up against Jalen Williams is a big difference from the Pelican series. But what I would say is, this is what the switching is designed for. In OKC, as much as they are a scoring machine, they are a drive and kick team. So I think having a clear vision of what Dallas is doing rotation-wise and where they can attack the gap set will probably lead to OKC being more decisive going forward in the series. So I wouldn't say it's completely on, hey, they have to take the shot. Because then if you look at OKC, a team that usually carves you up with multiple penetrations and cuts, now taking quicker shots, it's kind of a win for Dallas. So this is the work to take away Chet. This is the work to make it tougher on Jalen Williams. We know what Shea can do. How are you guys going to adjust to this? And now what are you going to default to? Biggest thing is Dallas has nailed the rotations they've had to make. They've contained the penetration from OKC. That's the battle. If OKC is able to drive all night and Dallas is not able to get to the same help and recover, I think it looks different. So it's more of I tip the cap to Dallas. But if OKC can find it, you'll see it real quick.
That we will. It's very quickly. OKC's half-court offensive rating dropped in each of the last 3 games, or in each game of the series. The half-court frequency has risen each game. They haven't had the same transition opportunities. And again, just keeping an eye on the drives for OKC and what they can generate there. All right. Let's move to the W, which quickly on the news front, W announced late last week that they are rolling out their charter flight program this season and for the next 2 seasons. So this one and 2025, conveniently scheduled considering that the CBA is up after 2025 or can be opted out of rather. So it makes sense there's going to be a 2-year investment there to see how the money rolls in and things of that nature. And as we record on a Monday, the roster cut down deadline is today. We've seen over the weekend and as of today, the Wings cutting guard Veronica Burton. We've had a couple of trades, Crystal Dangerfield being traded to the Atlanta Dream, and they eventually waived Destiny Henderson, a guard that they picked up a little bit earlier in the preseason play. The Storm trading Jade Melbourne to the Mystics for a 2025 third. The Mystics trading Queen Egbo to the Sun for a 2025 second, and the rights to Bernadette Hattar. And so we're starting to get some decisions on that front. So I wanted to make sure I got the news out there first. As for the actual preview portion, we got 12 teams. We got 12 with an asterisk questions. Question for each team. I just sorted my notes by what the standings were last year. So we'll go Aces, Liberty, Sun, Wings, and on down the list. If that's cool with you, we'll make sure that's an okay order.
Yeah, what you mean? you thought I didn't think we would start with the Aces? Come on, bud.
I'm just saying. I just
throw these questions out, big dog.
Okay, well, let's go for it. Las Vegas Aces, naturally, they've won the championship the last 2 years, best record in the league last year. Biggest question for me heading in is who the Aces are going to trust or rely on while Chelsea Gray recovers. I was in Columbia for the preseason game on Saturday. Go ahead.
Kelsey Plum and Jackie Young.
Well, I mean, yes, they are absolutely going to soak up a lot of those minutes. But I asked that just because I was able to ask Becky Hammond what the status update of Chelsea Gray was. She said they're taking it day by day. They want to go slow about it. They don't want to bring Chelsea back on the floor until she's 100%. If you remember, she did not finish last season due to a foot injury. I believe she has been practicing, but obviously not the same. Didn't play in the preseason game. So I just wondered, how much responsibility are they going to give to Jackie in particular as kind of a point guard because he's kind of settled into like the backup point guard role last year. And I wonder how much responsibility she gets on that front. And kind of related to that, as Sydney Colston's still there, and she started at point guard during the preseason game. They did draft De'Asia Fair, one of the most prolific scorers in college basketball history. It's like they do have options, and it kind of blends into like a larger, how are the Aces going to manage minutes this year? As they are now going for championship 3 in a row. You got the Olympic break, which I think is fair to assume like Asia, Kelsey, Chelsea, Jackie are going to be involved in with Team USA. I don't think the roster's been finalized yet, but I think it's safe to say if they're healthy, that those are going to be 4 members of that team. I just kind of want to see how they manage the regular season in general.
Well, I think this is the luxury of being the Aces to a degree. You have to knock us off our pedestal. And a lot of people always talk about depth and guard depth when it comes to the Aces. They have very good guard play. It's very hard to crack the rotation when, hey, we can play Kelsey Plum, Jackie Young, and or Chelsea Gray and just keep doing that. So I think it's one of those things where, to me, they're going to look at the contributions of Sydney Colson. She's going to help. But I think overall it speaks to the Aces' versatility. And that's where my mind goes to. What are these lineups combinations going to look like? Who's going to play with whom? Because I think the one thing the Aces did a very good job of continuing to add versatility to their roster and pieces that fit what they like to do. And just basketball players, you know? I think that's the fun part of this. And now we can go double big with Asia and Nekias Stokes. We can bring Gustafson off the bench and go double big. We can go small if we need to. Heck, we can go small in 2 different ways if we'd like to. We have scoring guards. We have scoring wings. We have basketball players. Like, so it's just who's going to play with whom and who's going to impact it more than anything. Because I'm intrigued. You know, is this a Kirsten Bell year? Does Kate Martin suddenly hoop as far as just fitting right into what the Aces do? That's the scary part for me.
I got you. And like we saw a lot of those lineup combinations play out during the preseason game. Well, I guess I did, as the game was not streamed, but that's another pod for another day. It's fine.
Yeah. John Cena for me. I couldn't see
John Cena for you. But yeah, we did see a lot of Asia and Megan together. We saw some Kia and Megan. We saw some Megan and Alicia Clark at the 4. We saw Alicia Clark at the 3 when they sized up. They went through a lot of different things. It wasn't until the 4th quarter until we saw the rookies. And again, the Aces were big at that point, but we did get to see De'Asia Fair, Kate Martin, Kirsten Bell, Megan Gustafson. Got some Emma Cannon minutes, which was fun. So they do have options to kind of upsize or downsize depending on how they want to do that. But that's kind of the big thing for me. It's just, general health, Chelsea Gray, and in general, are they going to try to lean on the bench a little bit more than they did last year? If for no other reason than because this is a 3-year run now in terms of trying to make the playoff thing. We got the Olympic break. We know these players are capable of playing 32 plus minutes a night, 40-minute games for those who are new to the W. But we know they're capable of playing 32 minutes a night. Can we get this down to 29, 28 during the regular season and then ramp back up since we have so much going on this year? So that's kind of my general thing with the Aces heading into it. With the New York Liberty, there's a question that I teased to you after the Sky preseason game. And just generally, like, should we be worried at all about New York's backcourt defensively?
Define worry.
Well, I guess it's just that. Like, should we be worried about the backcourt? Like, I don't think Courtney Vanderstoot's the same defender as she was in prior years. And Sabrina Ionescu won't be confused with, like, an all-defense caliber guard. And, like, within the context of their team, and I talked about this with the preseason game where they really ramped up the pressure with Jonquel Jones at the level of Breanna Stewart as well. Like, does it shift at all from we are versatile to we kind of have to start this way to make sure that we're not allowing things early?
Is it not? Is it the same concern from last year?
Kinda, yeah.
What'd they do last year?
Defense turned up second half of the year. They got to the finals, and then they did not win said finals.
So is the concern just individual one-on-one guarding, or what is the? What's the bit here?
I think it's a general containment bit for those two. Yeah.
Well, then the idea is, hey, we have Jonquel Jones and Stewie. We got help.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I don't think I don't think that's the bit for the Liberty. For me, I'm more concerned, can you build out your lineup combinations? what does your bench look like? Can you get bench scoring? How important is Jonquil with the second unit going to be? Can you build off what you did last year as far as finding the movement, finding the tempo, keeping pressure on teams as you're spacing? Or will you have to, once again, find it like you did last year? It's probably more where my mind goes. But I mean, as far as what's the containment, who was tell me more. I'm listening.
I mean, that's pretty much it. Like, I don't think for the Liberty, you don't want to get to a situation where teams feel like we could just get to their guards in space and put New York in rotation. Even if you have built out the roster to help the way that they can, you don't want to be in constant rotation or, constantly want to just clean things up at the rim.
Nekias, what team doesn't think they can go at the Liberty guards?
I mean, yeah, that's literally the thing.
What team?
Again, this is a really good basketball team. I don't have 12 questions for the Liberty.
No, what team?
My biggest one is, hey, what is this perimeter defense going to look like?
What team? What guards did they go at the Liberty last year?
There wasn't one, I don't think. Which I don't think you want to feel that way. An old problem is still a problem.
An old problem is still. But I'm saying they had counters, right?
They did. So then your answer is not at all.
No.
Okay, that's fine. No, that was my biggest one. I will say, like, I had tipped you on the bench point because they do just have a lot of new faces there. Still not 100% sure on what the status for Han or Marine is going to be. Like, there's been a little bit of confusion. Felt like they were both just going to be out. And they was like, well, if Marines counts as like a 2-year player versus a 3-year player, then maybe she can come back middle of the year. So I'm just not 100% sure if she's back. They do have a lot of new faces with the second unit, so that's also going to be a big one. Did you have another Liberty question?
Mainly, how are you going to open up Sabrina and pick and roll, or are you going to go off ball? What's going to be the balance there? Because sometimes it can be tempting to just kind of run empty pick and roll and let her operate. But part of the thing for the Liberty is the flow that they have when they're able to go side to side and run multiple actions. And then how many times can you just hurt the defense with, we ran this action and now, oh, look, it's Stewie and Sabrina space, or it's just Stewie space. How much pressure can they put on teams that way? It's probably my biggest question.
Okay. Makes sense. On to the Connecticut Sun. Like, I think for me, like, I technically have two, but like the biggest one for me is just looking at the perimeter room, just because they have so many new faces in. I think we see more Ty Harris, no Natisha Hydeman this year. We have Tiffany Mitchell, Dejanay Carrington with the ability to step up and roll, get more usage there. Just are they really ready to complement that Connecticut front court with Alyssa Thomas, with DeWanna Bonner, with Bree Jones coming back into the fold? Just what is it going to look like? Are they able to build off of the flow they were able to establish under Stephanie White in year one? So it's not necessarily enough for me. I should also add Rachel Banham. Should bring some much needed off-ball movement and off-ball shooting. My biggest question is just how quickly does the guard room acclimate itself with this roster? And what does that do to Connecticut's offense overall?
I'm really excited to see what Connecticut does in year two under Stephanie White, and honestly how Rachel Banham impacts that, because of the ability to, A, I can shoot, B, you can put me in movement actions, C, I don't have to do stuff with the ball as much. It seems like a win for everyone. I think for me, my eye goes to, can the defense hit the same levels? Not to say that they can't. We've seen that they can't. But I think the defense is really important for them. And then what does the reintegration of Bree Jones look like for this Sun team? Does that open more things up for them as far as the variety they can run? Can we lean on the post-ups a little bit more? Does that change anything they really want to do? Or does that take a little bit to kind of get going? And then what does Dejanay Carrington do with this opportunity? Eh? I think there is an opportunity for her to really put her footprint on this. The drives can be there. The threes have been there. I think she had a really good year last year. I'm intrigued by those three things. I think if that happens, I think the Sun once again do the Sun thing and contend.
I got you. Very quickly related, as you bring up the reintegration of Bree Jones, I think that's a good one. I guess two questions on that front. One, would you just start Bree whenever she's ready?
Yeah.
Or do you bring her off the bench and then just kind of slowly rip her up? You go straight to starting. Okay.
I would start in minute restriction more than anything.
Okay, got you. And then related to that, as mentioned a little bit earlier, they traded for Queen Egbo. Like, how do you see the front court minutes falling for Connecticut? Because I think between Bree, Alyssa, Dewana, if they want to have her at the 4. She defended some 5s last year as well when they downsized. You have Olivia Nelson-Adota as well. Like, they just have a lot of front court pieces, and it's not like, outside of Dewana, if you consider her 4, it's not like they have like a pure stretch option or multiple stretch options to build it out in a more, I don't want to call it traditional way, but like in a way that, most people would consider. Like, if we got a paint bound 5, then we need someone that can stretch it to complement that, if that makes sense. But how do you see those minutes shaking out?
Well, I think that it would be, Ono would probably get the first rep off the bench. And then Queen Egbo can either earn more playing time or just kind of be an insurance option if you have to manage the minutes of Bree Jones. Probably be my bit. I'm actually now thinking, how confident are you in the Connecticut Sun guard room, Nekias?
I'm at like this is going to sound like a cop-out, but it's my honest answer. Like, I'm kind of like a 5 right now. Because it's one of those things where, like, individually, I like the skill sets and I understand what you do. Like, I know how impactful of a perimeter defender and driver Tiffany Mitchell can be. I know what kind of shooter Rachel Banham can be. And I have not gotten to watch the Liberty Sun preseason game yet, which she apparently just lost her mind from 3. So get the nice flash there. But, like, I know what they can do. Generally speaking, like, the drives and the pull-up mixed in by Ty Harris and the general pace that she plays with, I know that could be a fit. But, like, I just need to see it full-fledged, because you're also trying to balance that stuff with Alyssa Thomas running so much of the offense last year. Though I do feel like, I guess I'll ask you that. How much of Alyssa running the offense the way that she did last year was, Alyssa, you're really good, please do that, and we don't trust these other guards to really get us into our offense like that? Like, what do you think that balance was? Because that also kind of plays into, like, where I'm in a weird spot with the guards.
I think it's more that they have to nail the drives and you got to knock down shots. Because you can get AT to get you in whatever you need. But I think for Connecticut, they need their flow to be at a certain level. And so it can't be a scenario where, okay, dribble handoff, no drive here.
Okay, that makes sense. So I guess I'm really just in wait and see mode. Like, I'm not, the guard room's bad, they're going to be bad or anything like that. I just want to see it. Because I can see where it makes sense, but I can also see where it may end up being clunky early on. So we'll just have to see. Moving on to the Dallas Wings. I think the obvious one is just going to be with Satu Sabally expected to be out until at least August, after the Olympic break. How are they going to hold up? Beyond that, you asked me about Connecticut's guard room. In the non-Enrique division, as she's just an all-star, I am kind of curious to see what this guard room is going to look like for Dallas. How much of an impact is JC Sheldon going to have early on? I see the ideal of it. I think the defense is going to be strong. I do want to see how much on-ball responsibility she gets alongside Enrique if she starts. But Dallas has just made a lot of moves with their guards. Trading Crystal Dangerfield, end up waiving Veronica Burton. Like, it feels like the young guards are going to get burned here. Or at the very least, they're leaving it open for maybe later in the year. Hey, let's bring Odyssey Sims back. Or if they want to trade one of the front court pieces to try to get a guard, like, they're leaving themselves room to do that. But biggest question for me, roster-wise, is probably just how impactful the guards be outside of Enrique.
I guess I would answer your question with a question, unfortunately, not to be rude. What do you need from them? If you have Enrique and you have the bigs. And so you are very much missing the ability to kind of have Satu's versatility and the amount of actions that you could run with Satu and the playmaking that she could bring to the table. But what do you need? Because even when they had a guard, and not to be disrespectful, it was, okay, you're a help point. We're going under. So what do you view that the Wings would need in the guard room?
Like, I think because you have Enrique there and she's just going to have the ball in her hands a lot anyway, like, ideally you want someone that can just make quick decisions against a tilted defense. Can you knock down open threes? Can you not just drive, but drive in a timely manner? And even if you get into, like, the initiation bag, do you have a respectable enough pull-up to make defenses pay if they do try to duck under? And with some of the movement stuff with Enrique, can you make accurate pass to Enrique coming off of a pin down, off of a stagger, to where she can just maintain her advantage as one of the fastest guards in the league? And then the point of attack defense obviously is going to be important, because you don't want Enrique taking that on. She did make strides defensively last year, particularly on ball, But like ideally you want someone to take that burden off her if you're facing an elite guard.
I think there's some fun stuff you can do as far as with J.C. Sheldon as a screener for Arike. Again, this is the wing, so I imagine we are going to see post-ups, high-lows, a lot of Arike. So for me, I think being able to replace that offense is going to be hard. The guard room is important, but can they hit their formula? Can the defense play at a high enough level to get stops, allow you to get out and run, balance out the half court? Can you mix in the post-ups? Can Arike get you there? Can you hold the tide while Satu's out? That's probably my biggest question if you're Dallas.
All right, I got you. We can move to the Atlanta Dream. Technically 2 for me. I guess I'll just pick one for now. We'll see where you go with yours. Is Ryan Howard ready to become a bona fide 3-level scorer? Do we just get the pure leap from Ryan Howard this year? And what would that mean for Atlanta's offense if we do get it? Because we know what kind of shooter she is. Very willing pull-up shooter. She's very good off of movement. She has some of the best footwork in the league coming off of screens and being efficient with her movement and getting open looks from there. A very good defender. She has grown as a driver through her first couple of years of the season. Couple of seasons of her career, excuse me. I think she's grown more comfort as a pull-up shooter inside the arc. The efficiency just quite hasn't been there. And even with the finishing, the efficiency hasn't been as high as you would like. I just want to see what kind of leap we see from Ryan. Because I do think if she becomes an even more dangerous player inside the arc, she's going to draw more attention. She has the size to see over the top, and I think she is a good passer right now. If she's able to become bona fide, I am a superstar now. I think that makes life a lot easier on this offense, especially in light of Jordan Canada, who's the big acquisition for Atlanta this year, not going to be available for the start of the year. She's dealing with the hand injury or wrist injury. They're going to need someone that can both initiate and also just put pressure on defenses. I think Ryan's going to be your best source right now. And so if she can take more pressure off of Alicia Gray, that's more tilted defenses for her to attack. If the pick and roll between her and Tina Charles or her and Cheyenne Parker becomes more deadly because Ryan can do more things inside the arc, I think it just has an additive effect. So I'm really excited to watch what Ryan has in store for us this year.
I agree. I think she's improved each year. I think there's more to be done as far as, quick decision making. The drives, I think, could be more impactful. The thing for me with the Dream is, are you going to execute? Are you going to move the ball? Are you going to play with flow? In theory, you should have perimeter scoring in Gray and Howard. You should have movement. You have post play. You have 2 screeners. You can space Cheyenne or Tina Charles. You have what you need if you're the Atlanta Dream, especially when Jordan Canada comes back. Now, can you execute it on the court? Is it going to be movement side to side? We're using our threats together. We're keeping pressure on you. Or are things going to slow down? Are they going to bog down? Is it going to be one-on-one play? Is it going to be too many post-ups? Or are we going to miss? Are we not putting pressure on the defense? The balance is the key for me with the Dream.
I got you. And then just secondarily, before we move on to Minnesota, I am just keeping eyes on this Atlanta second unit. I want to see what it is and what kind of flow that they have. Because it very much could be a unit that just has pressure points all over the place, and holy crap, their second unit is a lot better than yours, and they can score in bunches. Or this could turn into catch and hold central. And if it is the latter, I am going to be concerned with the Atlanta Dream. So we'll keep an eye on the second unit as well.
Any particular players you're concerned about on the Atlanta Dream second unit?
Yes. Now, moving on to the Minnesota. Just kidding. But no, it feels very boom or bust with Aerial Powers in particular, as someone that can score in bunches. But I think part of the reason, if we're just sticking strictly to the basketball side, part of the reason where she fell out of favor with Minnesota, I believe, is because of the style that she has offensively, where it is a lot of dribbling, it is a lot of probing, it is a lot of let me get to my spot, contrasted to like the general flow that Minnesota wants to play with and the flow that Atlanta wants to find. So like, I'm curious if she is just spearheading the second unit versus let's mix her in with the starters right now. I just want to see what those minutes are going to look like. She has the talent clearly to nail that and to be a productive bench piece, but I just want to see what the flow is going to look like. To Minnesota. Very fun roster, headlined by Nafisa Collier. Courtney Williams, if you've watched any of the preseason plays, she seems to be a hand-in-glove fit for what Minnesota wants to do stylistically, offensively. Steve, will the Lynx defend well enough for their offense to matter?
Oh.
That's my biggest question heading into this one. Now, to that point, full season and full off-season for Nekias Collier. She is one of the best defenders in the league among those front court players. You add Alana Smith, who can cover ground with the best of them, really good shot blocker, gives you a level of aggression and a level of scheme versatility. They have work to add defense in the offseason. And if you are anticipating year 2 jump for Diamond Miller, who is a tremendous athlete, not the best defender right now, but certainly has the tools to do so, there's room for them to be like 5th or 6th in defensive rating, which doesn't sound great, out of 12 teams. But if you are 6th in defense for Minnesota, and they were, I think 11th last year, if they can get up to 6th, I feel really good about what they're going to be able to generate offensively if they stay healthy. So I just want to see what steps they make as a defense overall and quietly as a rebounding group, because they weren't a great rebounding team last year. If they can end possessions and or force turnovers, I feel much better about their prognosis. But I think it starts with their defense.
I think it starts with their defense.
Yeah.
I was going to flip it and I say, can their offense make up for what they might not have defensively? Have they made enough moves offensively to put themselves in a position where they don't have to rely on their defense that same position? So if you recall, the Lynx seemed like a really fun series against the Connecticut Sun until it was no longer a fun series against the Connecticut Sun. So can they tap into the versatility that they have as a team and kind of put this blend together that puts pressure on defenses to where we have Diamond Miller, who continues to improve. We have Kayla McBride. We know what she can do on ball. Courtney Williams, you mentioned. Nekias Collier, very, very good and can be used in a lot of different ways. I think the versatility is going to be key, but sometimes when you have that much versatility, is it as impactful? What are you running? Do teams get used to what you're running? Are you relying so much on what you're running to open things up for you as opposed to just playing? So I'm wondering, can they find and strike that balance offensively to kind of offset what may or may not happen defensively? Now, if you have Alana Smith, that should help them, but it'll be a key there. I'm intrigued.
I, too, am intrigued. Moving on to Washington, very much in the rebuild stage right now. No Elena Deladon likely for the Washington Mystics this season. Biggest question for me is Shakira Austin and, to a lesser extent, Brittany Sykes ready for more usage this year? Very excited to see the ball in Shakira Austin's hand more. Very good athlete, intriguing ball handler, solid passer from the center spot. The drives are already fun. We saw some flashes in the rookie year, and we saw a really hot start to the year for her in year 2 before she got hurt. It was ultimately lost for most of that season. This feels like a very prime, most improved player candidate. Honestly, with Shakira, she's healthier and just has the ball in her hands more room to explore, more room to create. It could be a lot of fun there. And Brittany Sykes, who I believe started at point guard during the Mystics' first preseason game. And she took over primary ball, or she had a stretch of primary ball handling duties last year as the Mystics were dealing with all their injuries. She's the one that can get downhill with the best of them. She is a solid passer. The jumper is always going to be the thing that you kind of keep the eye on. When she's spaced, will she knock enough of those down? When she's taking pull-ups, how many of those is she going to take? She's comfortable taking the shots. The efficiency doesn't always follow, but she can get hot really quickly. But if she is going to be more of the primary, just watching how she's going to balance the playmaking / scoring opportunities there. And again, with Shakira, the sky is just the limit for her if she's able to stay healthy. I just want to see what actions they run for her. They already invert things with her with post-ups, general cross screens and things like that, or they'll slice her in. Do we see inverted pick and rolls for Shakira Austin this year? I'm just really excited to see what's in store for those two particularly.
I think the big thing that stood out to me before Shakira got injured was just the post play, the footwork, the ability to face up or back down. And I can get what I want. I can shake and get to where I need to be. I think with Sykes, I wouldn't be surprised. The aggression was there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, despite the lineups, the up and down nature of the Mystics last year. I think the one for me is, does this open things up for Ariel Atkins to be more involved on and off ball? Does she now slide back up a notch offensively for the Mystics, and what does that do for them? And my biggest question is, can this defense hit the level it needs to hit for this team to compete at the level it could? Mm-hmm. I'm higher on the Mystics than most, I believe. It doesn't work if they do not defend at a very high level. So can they bring that blend of activity on ball, their rotations on the weak side, and become annoying to play against, and that be their brand of basketball.
Got you. One day, not today. We don't have the time. We're going to explore your affinity with the Washington basketball teams and how they can start their season. But we'll say that for a later time. The Chicago Sky. A lot of movement. No Kalia Copper. No Alana Smith. No Courtney Williams. The latter two in Minnesota. Kalia Copper, obviously a member of the Phoenix Mercury now. You add in Angel Reese, you add in Camila Cardoso in the draft, though Camila's going to be out, I think, 4 to 6 weeks with a shoulder injury. So we're not going to see her for a little bit. Early preseason tape was intriguing for her. Defensively, also ran the floor hard. We talked about it a little bit on the previous episode, the dunker spot. What is this Chicago offense going to look like? And what is it really going to be? I don't have questions about what Chicago's defense is going to look like. It's very much good. I think I have a similar feel to last year, to where when it hits, you are turning the ball over, you're going to be uncomfortable, you're not going to have a fun time. However, because they're so aggressive, if you have a good passing team, you can generate some open looks. So I think it's going to be a similar vibe there with the defense. The offense is just where I'm like, hey, what are we getting? We're going to have more Dana Evans on ball. I'm excited about that. I think the scoring efficiency is certainly going to matter more this year than it did last year as she transitioned from a bench role to the starting role. But she absolutely has the ability to get downhill at a high level. She's very comfortable taking pull-up threes, some deep pull-up threes at that, when she really has it going, hunting for a shot. Will enough of those shots fall? Marina Mabry, another year, she's going to get more usage. What does that look like? Is she able to blend in the three-point shooting and some of the drives? Can she get downhill a little bit more? And then with the front court, how quickly does Angel acclimate herself as a scorer? And you just kind of zoom out from there. Like Diamond DeShields, certainly going to slash, certainly going to pull up inside the arc. Will enough of those shots fall? Like, they have a lot of players that can burn you when the defense is tilted. I do wonder, like, who's drawing two with this group? Or who's really going to scare defenses into making life easier for the offense? Can they find enough of that stuff? Or will this become a team like 10, 12 games in where it's like, oh, well, actually, we're just ducking under this. We're switching this. Y'all have fun. And then they're just super reliant on the defense and forcing turnovers to be able to get easy stuff.
I think the Sky are going to be fun. I don't know what it means results-wise, but I think with the way Coach Weatherspoon has them playing, the defense that they have the potential to play and the importance of defense, they're getting after it. They're going to compete. Now, the question is, can they execute in half court? I think that's a very fair one. I do think a lot of that is going to rely on, one, a level of execution, and two, the guards. It's going to be on Marina Mabry and Dana Evans. Now, they are not only going to have the usage, they are empowered, but having a coach that kind of rocks with, hey, go ahead and get one. The only issue is 2 preseason games, right, Nekias?
Mm-hmm.
In one of them, Marina and Dana Evans combined to shoot 6 for 19. The Sky scored 81 points. In the other one, they combined to shoot 15 for 24. The Sky scored 101 points. So you can kind of tell there's a little bit of a little common denominator there. They're going to need those two to produce at a high level consistently enough to where teams feel like they got to take them away. So it'd probably be Marina there for me. I think Angel Reese is going to compete. How many post-ups are going to go to? And then is this a scenario where they kind of find their way defensively, but teams start to poke at them as the season goes on? Now that defense lessens the impact, and now they're kind of just having to figure out how to compete at a certain level every night. But I enjoyed what I saw from them in the preseason.
I got you. That's just quickly add before we move on in the guard room. Kennedy Carter, both making the roster. Congrats to her. But goodness gracious, her drives. Her drives in the interior passing in particular. Like, I don't know if we get to the point to where she ends up starting, like sans injury, but I think she's going to be a very productive player off the bench for Chicago. She is going to get downhill wherever she wants to. The preseason tape did not lie at all on that front. So we will see. To the Los Angeles Sparks, and also in a rebuild, they drafted Cam Brink and Nekias Jackson, Neko Gumake in Seattle right now. And speaking of Seattle, I just have that game burned in my head. Are their guards ready for pressure? Are their guards ready for aggressive defenses? Because I feel like, when healthy, they have a bunch of bigs that can make plays in space and can make short roll reads and can finish, or can just get on the short roll and make reads and then kind of play drive and kick out of that. They have to get to that point. Like, as much as I trust like a Cam Brink to make the right pass or to just finish at the basket with her size advantage, or as much as I trust a Dearica Hamby, who, buddy, she had a fun preseason. I'm excited for what her season's going to be this year. But as much as I trust them to make those plays in space, you got to get them the ball. And that's where I kind of look at the current guard group, and it's just like, well, who is Lasia Clarendon their best passer?
Potentially. I mean, Lexi Brown may disagree.
She may. And I think Lexi feels more like I make this pass against tilted defense versus I will manipulate this and get the ball here because I know what you're doing. Not that she can't grow into that this year, but that's been my reader, watching her at the very least. And so that's where I'm just like, more how many advantages can they create versus how many can they maintain? Because I worry more about the former than the latter with this group. And I guess in general, because of where the offense is and stuff like that, with Lexi in particular, as she is now signed the extension in LA, had a really good year before becoming sick, if I remember correctly, last season. If she starts seeing more two on the ball, either flowing off ball or in pick and roll, how does she handle that? I feel like this could be a fun growth year for her with the ball in her hands and seeing that kind of defensive attention. But as she works through that, what is that going to do to the overall offense for the Sparks? So it's that plus just the general how did rookies step up or how did rookies slide in? How quickly do they acclimate themselves? Again, Nekias Jackson, fun flashes in the preseason. Cam Brink certainly showed in the preseason. I can block all these shots. Also, I may foul. And offensively, we've seen a three from her. We've seen some of the finishes. So a lot of intrigue with the rookies in particular, but I think I'll start with the guards.
I think to the guard play point, it's going to be the balance of what the Sparks run and how do they flow out of their first actions. Are we going to play through Cam Brink at the elbow? Are we going to get the pass and cut? We're going to get splits? Are we going to cut? Is that the way they can balance out? Maybe not having as much of the pick and roll play. For me, it's what kind of culture can this team establish? I think for this year, what kind of system can we get going? What kind of movement can we get going? What are we building for the next version of the Sparks? Can they pull what Seattle did to a degree? To where this may not be our year, but we're building this. And we're going to find our way. We're going to compete. We're going to be smart offensively. We're going to work defensively. Can they lay the foundation this year is probably what I'm looking to see.
Okay. Makes sense. And I would say just quickly on the offensive style point that you alluded to. With Kurt Miller as the head coach, certainly a lot of experience of running offense drew big, and y'all cut around from there. So he obviously has the comfort and knowledge to be able to do that. We'll see what the process is going to look like, though, as the season starts. The Indiana Fever, a team that is suddenly more popular. Not sure why. I guess we have to start with the number one pick, the Caitlin Clark. Just how quickly does she get acclimated to the W? If the preseason games are any indication, she certainly hasn't met a shot that she from the perimeter that she doesn't like. She will pull those threes. We've already seen the passing flashes. We've already seen her teammates now trying to get used to how audacious some of the passes are from Caitlin Clark. I think back to, I want to say it's the Dream game. They push after a miss or after a made basket, rather. Caitlin's bringing up the right side of the floor, and she just chucks this 50-foot pass to Alyssa Smith as she's just cutting through, getting ready to set up offense. She had no idea that pass was coming until the very last moment. It's oh, I got to keep my head up for these, huh? I was ahead of my defender, but the play hadn't started yet. So just what that chemistry deal is going to look like, how quickly they can acclimate. And then zooming out, as there is so much hype around this team, Caitlin Clark is in, Aaliyah Boss is an all-star, and Alyssa Smith's very good. Kelsey Mitchell was an all-star last year. Hopefully she's ready for the opener. How good is this defense going to be? Talked about the Lynx a little bit earlier. They were actually 10th. The Fever were 11th in defensive rating last year. They were 9th in defensive rebound rate. I just have my brow raised with this defense. We will see how quickly Caitlin can settle in, and she isn't coming in as an elite defender prospect to begin with. What is she going to look like on that end? There's a lot of ice with her, a lot of switching as the preseason went on with her, seeing how she's holding up there. Erica Wheeler will pressure the ball, but not an elite on-ball defender, and the off-ball stuff can get a little fuzzy. Alyssa Smith, not the best defender. Aaliyah Boston, already a good one, but it does feel like a lot of pressure on her to anchor a top half of the league defense in year two. She may just end up proving me wrong on that front. We'll see if she has her own growth. But I want to see where the defense lands. I think you've already seen through the preseason what the offense can look like in the ways they can blend their talent together, and that's been without Kelsey Mitchell so far. If the defense doesn't match the growth, then I don't know how much the standings change for this group. I don't think this is a 25 and 15 year. without the defense popping. Just throw a number out there.
I hear you. But I think for me, it's the offense. How dangerous is this team going to be with their movement? How many quick decisions will Clayton Clark make? Can they hold that up in the half court against teams who will be locked in to play the fever? It would be great atmospheres. So can they take what they do offensively with their movement, with their sets, side to side, adding Caitlin Clark, who has obviously a three-point shot that drives and quick decisions, can that sustain them in the half court against teams who may be more physical, maybe more active? Where do they run? Where do they try and get to? How does that evolve throughout the course of the season? Can they grow up on that end of the floor and open themselves up wiggle room for the defense?
Got you. All right, 2 more teams. The Seattle Storm. You add Neko Ogwumike. You add Skylar Diggins-Smith. You got high expectations when you add talents like that. So there's just a natural how quickly does this fit in on both ends of the floor. The preseason tape that we at least had access to, it might just be a pretty seamless transition with some of the flow that we've seen with those 2 plus Jewel Lloyd playing off of each other. I think for me, it's just who emerges as the 5th for Seattle. I, for one, am very intrigued with Jordan Horston. This is someone that I brought up on the last pod as a potential breakout candidate. As someone very willing screener, good cutter, not the best finisher yet, but Noelle Quinn, as I talked to her a little bit earlier in the year for Media Day with Seattle, she seems pretty high on the work that Jordan's put in to become a better finisher. We will see where the jump shot lands. Defensively, already very versatile. I think the best version of the Seattle team is Jordan making strides offensively and the defense continuing to grow, and she's just solidly that 5th. But if there are questions about the jumper or the finishing or whatever the case may be, do we see like a 3-guard setup with Skylar Jewell and Sammy Whitcomb? And then you're closing it with Nneka and Ezzy Matt-Magor, as your closing lineup. Or do they find someone else on the bench that pops the circling as their 5th? I just want to see who really firmly established themselves as we complement this all-star 4. I think that's my biggest one heading in.
I think it's going to be, I like the actions the Storm have run. How quickly can you make those big 3 a quote-unquote powerhouse to a degree? Mm-hmm. What will the movement look like? How can you keep pressure on teams? And I think the lineup point is a really good one because I have no problem with them generating shots. Who else are they going to generate them for? And are they going to be able to make the defense pay? Mm-hmm. And so I think it's going to be one of those things where if the flow is there offensively, can they keep that up to a degree that defenses really feel the power of that big 3?
Okay, I got you. And then the last one, the Phoenix Mercury finishing 12th last season. I do not anticipate that being the case with the full year Brittany Griner. You add in Natasha Cloud, you add Kalia Copper to the fray. My biggest question is just what is this going to look like? What is the offensive hierarchy for this group? What is the offensive flow going to look like? Defensively, as we saw some zone from Phoenix last year, particularly with some of the Diana Taurasi possessions where she held up relatively well when they went to the zone. How much zone are we going to see with that group? And then just in terms of like personnel stuff, between Sophie Cunningham and Beck Allen, are you ready to play the 4? How often can they tap into one of those 2 at the 4 and just have their 5 best players on the floor? I think that's where I start with this Phoenix group.
I would not be surprised with a heavy amount of smaller lineups. What's going to be interesting to me is what does the offense truly look like? I think that's a really good one. So how are they going to be able to balance all of the talent and versatility they have? Not to tap the Lynx button again, but how are you going to unlock the drives of Ka, the drives of Cloud with just general flow? What are you running? Are you getting the actions quick? Are you throwing in the post? It's more so how they build that out offensively that I'm curious about. I think the defense is an important point, but if this is a Mercury offense that has the firepower, but it's not firing, I don't know how far they go. So it's more how do they build this out? What do they do? You mentioned the hierarchy. If you're going small, who's running handoffs? What are you executing? That's the portion that I need to see.
Mm-hmm. Can I throw out a very quick like NBA comp that I just thought of like 12 seconds ago? So it may just be bad, but I just thought about it in terms of like the stylistic thing they got to figure out.
What's up?
Because I was just going to toss at you like, what is the tempo of this group going to look like? Like Harden and Embiid Sixers.
You ready to get mad?
Sure.
Division 6-9 Raptors with stars.
Oh. Yeah, we shall see. But no, like I say the Sixers just 'cause I'm trying to figure out like how you balance like the BG post ups with some of the on ball stuff that you could do with Diana Taurasi Steele or with Natasha Cloud. Like Natasha is someone that's very comfortable playing in transition and just getting into your offense earlier. Like how are they able to blend that with BG and Diana being on the floor together? I think it's just going to be like a fun dichotomy between Natasha Cloud and Kalia Copper. They can just go all game long. Turnover, miss, let's just get down the floor. Where DT and BG, you may want more of the half-court style. Let's get into the stagger with Diana. Let's get into this post-up with BG. Let's play out of that. So I'm curious to see like just what the style mesh is going to look like. I think talent-wise, they can put a lot of pressure on defense in a lot of different ways. But I do want to see what the overall balance is going to be. And with that, unless you have another straight shout-out or question among these 12 teams you want to toss out there.
No, we're
all right. Fair enough. Well, then we can let's get on out of here then. Also, get WNBA League Pass. I think it's only $35 for the entire year, so go ahead and do that. Anyway, thank you for listening to and or watching this episode of The Dunker Spot. If you haven't already, please subscribe to us. We are on Apple, Spotify, RIP Google, I guess, Stitcher, Podbean, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us. If you're watching this on JJ Reddit's YouTube channel and for some reason you aren't subscribed to JJ Reddit's YouTube channel, please subscribe to JJ Reddit's YouTube channel. We are here every Tuesday. That's the day after Monday, the day before Wednesday, and we've been doing this all year long. This is pretty consistent. But anyway, we're here every Tuesday, so come rock with us if you want to see some plays spliced in. You want to see the Steve reactions when I make a ridiculous point. And beyond that, there is just great content dropping throughout the channel throughout the week, so you want to be subscribed and catch that stuff anyway. So go ahead and do that. Do yourself a favor. Get some elite basketball discussion in your life. You can follow me on Twitter at Nekias NBA. You can follow Steve on Twitter at SteveJones20. Join the Dunker Spot community on Twitter if you haven't already. Join us for our online Dunker Spot watch parties. If you have a League Pass subscription, and if you have an international League Pass subscription as well, you can watch playoff basketball alongside us. We're going to be breaking things down during commercial breaks, do some halftimes as well. And in general, we're just talking hoops, pointing out what we're seeing throughout the game. So if you want to second screen that, or if you just want a community of awesome people that love basketball and general nonsense as well, this is the place to be. The link is in the podcast description or the video description if you're watching on YouTube. Click on that. It is free to create your profile. Come watch some hoops with us. Come have a good time. And with that, we will catch y'all later in the week.
Bye.